Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, November the 18th. I'm Gary Stevens. Open line following the top of the hour, but we are very pleased to have the Development Director of the Holland Rescue Mission join us. Monthly update from the mission. Rachel Neal is handling the chores today.
Yes, I am.
But it's not a chore having Rachel with us. Good morning, Rachel.
Oh, thank you. It's not a chore to me either. So good. Things are good at the mission. Wow, what a season we're entering into as a community. It's been kind of crazy, right, Gary?
I'll agree with you on that. And unfortunately, we're in the month number 9 of the outbreak, and many people thought we wouldn't have to worry about it in the summer, let alone going into the holiday season, which unfortunately, because of the need, it's the busiest time of the year for the Holland Rescue Mission.
It is. I looked at the numbers this morning in preparation for this interview, and we're currently housing 116 men, women, and children in our facility, and that's pretty on point for this time of year. But we're really expecting to reach 150 plus probably by the time winter weather hits and really headlong into the holidays. And as if it's not challenging enough to be homeless on any given day, it's that much more challenging during a pandemic. So it's been rough on some of the folks that we serve.
Now, the thing about this particular outbreak, and now as we speak on the 18th, new restrictions have been placed on, health-related restrictions have been placed on, especially for dine-in situation. There are those that, well, let's put it this way, they don't have a home to cook their meals. And if they can't go inside to get a meal, let's just say it's a situation hopefully none of us will have to go through. But if they are going through it right now, the mission helps to a certain extent, but you don't want to have to have that for a long period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting during the time of quarantine, isolation, distancing ourselves, taking extra sanitary measures. There's a lot of people in our community that don't have the luxury of doing any of those things. And so we make it our aim, as always, but even heightened during this season, to make sure that people are safely housed, safely fed, and really that we're working with them to move them towards transition. I think what's interesting, Gary, is as the winter weather comes and it gets chillier outside, fewer and fewer people are choosing to live outside and weather the elements, and they're needing to come in. And so this time of year, we find ourselves urging people to come in out of the weather. We don't want to see anybody succumb to any of the elements, and get the help that they need to move forward. So it's that delicate balance of wanting everyone to come in that can to safe shelter, but also recognizing that we need to keep people safely housed during this pandemic and make sure that we are keeping a good distance between people. And so the more people we get in our building, the more difficult that is.
We're talking with Rachel Neal, the Development Director of the Holland Rescue Mission. If you have a question for Rachel, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. A step up. I'm going to use the term step up, but it's not really to a certain extent. There are those who are without a home, without a place to stay, and are out in the streets. But there are those who might be driving in a vehicle, maybe the one next to you if you're listening on the radio car here, that, they're in a car, they're in a SUV, or they're in a pickup, but that's also their home. And that's as much of a homeless situation as those who don't even have a vehicle of their own to call, let alone a home of their own to call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those too that are not just staying in their cars, Gary, but maybe are staying with family and friends. And as the pandemic worsens and the holidays are coming up, maybe they're not welcome to stay anymore, or they've overstayed their welcome, or we've even had situations where a family was homeless living with another family member, and someone tested positive for COVID, and now this family needs to leave so that they can isolate somewhere else. And it gets really tricky. I'm just every day thankful that we have the community of organizations that we have. We have a group of organizations that Lakeshore Nonprofit Alliance has put together, that we're on a monthly call with places like the health department and other organizations. We are daily working with the Ottawa County Health Department and organizations like Community Action House and Good Sam to make sure that we are helping people get to appropriate housing, safe housing, that their needs are being met, and that we're doing that safely.
395-1450 if you have a question for Rachel Neal of the Holland Rescue Mission. You mentioned Community Action House. You've been partnering with them, and it has sort of changed a little bit of the dynamics about taking care of the homeless. The Rescue Mission alone can't do it by itself, and now doesn't have to worry about it. Maybe the initial start for the outreach for those in need is through the mission, but then once the outreach has been done, it's through the Community Action House. Tell me if I'm wrong in that type of chain line.
Yeah, no, and I think if you look at it like a train, we're kind of the caboose. So we don't ever want to see anybody get to the place where they need our services. They're literally without a place to stay, often unemployed, don't have anyone to turn to. But organizations like Community Action House, Good Sam, and some of the others come alongside to help prevent people from becoming homeless. And so it's been a great opportunity to partner with Community Action House this year on our Thanksgiving efforts. We typically host 1,500 people for dinner at DeVos Fieldhouse. Such a bummer that we can't do that this year, but love that we can come alongside of Community Action House. They always provide Thanksgiving food boxes for low-income families in our area. And so we'll be providing care boxes with hygiene and household items. So I think any opportunity like that we have to intersect with another organization and help meet needs in the community while still sticking to the core of our mission is great.
What reason why I was saying, and you call it the caboose, but I say it's the front lines, because while there are those that can be able to be spotted before they get to the bottom stage of needing the help, there are others that come into the area and, they're already at the bottom stage and they couldn't do anything because maybe they're from out of town and they're in the Holland area and they need help, maybe a dire situation. That's why I was saying the rescue mission is the first step, and then you move through the Community Action House.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things people have been asking Gary is, okay, as you're not going to turn anybody away, but you're still trying to maintain COVID safety protocols within your shelters. How are you doing that? How are you housing all these people? And we've had to get creative. We've spaced out our bunk beds in our men's dorm. We've put up some physical barriers like hanging sheets in between beds to make sure that we're keeping people away from each other as much as possible. We have some designated quarantine sites with Ottawa County Health Department, but it is tricky. So I always like to tell the community this time of year, if it's hard for you right now, you can just say a little prayer for us, because it seems exponentially harder in some cases for those that we work with.
I need to ask you a news question, Rachel Neal. What are the COVID numbers right now, staff and those who are being served by the Holland Rescue Mission?
Yeah, so we're housing 116 currently. As far as COVID goes, I don't believe we have any active cases within our shelters or our staff, which is amazing. It's interesting, Gary, we sit on a council of rescue missions around the country, and the data that we've been seeing from homeless shelters around the country is that COVID is spreading less amongst the homeless community than it is just in everyday community life. And so we're not really sure why, other than we do believe that quite a few of our people already kind of exist without a whole lot of community. But it's just been interesting. We've been very blessed at the mission to not have many cases of COVID. And again, working very closely with the health department, that anyone that's been exposed or is awaiting a positive or awaiting a test is moved to a different site so that we don't have them in our shelters exposing other people.
You direct people for testing at times because sometimes they don't know, where can I get a test? And a lot of these places, you got to have an appointment. Well, it's easier said than done for some people.
It's very difficult, as I have personally experienced even this week in my own family, to try to figure out where to get a test. But we work right hand in hand with the health department. So we actually have protocols typed up and written with them. If someone thinks that they've been exposed or if they have symptoms, we almost immediately turn them over to the health department and let them work directly with those folks to make sure that they get to the safe place they need to be at, that they get access to a test and the healthcare that they need. And that if they have to quarantine offsite, that they have the resources, food, water, communications to be able to serve them during that time.
What about dealing with the needs of the youngsters, young family members, especially if it's a family, maybe a mom with a couple of kids that, it's one thing the adult needs, but the children's needs as well. And, we have the image of single mom with kids, but there's also single dads or single guardians with kids, maybe an older sibling needing to take care of the younger ones. The younger ones has needs too, and that's not the easiest thing to do.
And it can be very tricky when school is not happening in person and we have kids who are living in our shelter that have to learn remotely. And thankfully, our public school systems have been phenomenally helpful in providing devices, iPads and Chromebooks for kids that have to access the internet. But we did have to update some of our internet protocols at the shelters. That was pretty locked down pre-COVID. But then as you have people in your buildings that have to learn and work remotely, especially children, we had to make some changes there. The Family Hope Center, the way that it's designed for women and children it really promotes this idea of separating via space. So we have individual rooms for each family member, and we can very easily quarantine someone off if needed. We're trying to do most of that offsite, but yeah, our kids being in the building, those that aren't in school, it's tough. I mean, it's not like you're in your own home where you can run around and bang on the walls and go outside and play. The reality is they're living in a shelter.
Rachel, I would be a little neglect if I didn't ask for a comment from the Holland Rescue Mission as you are partnering with us and Community Action House in caring for community. We're collecting used coats, hats, mittens, and non-perishable foods for those in our community in need, and donations will go to the Action House as well as the Holland Rescue Mission. At least we're trying to help.
Yes, thank you for doing that. You highlighted a big need that we have right now, which is winter gear. So a lot of folks this time of year ask, hey, how can we help? What can we help provide? And you hit the nail on the head. Pantry items, winter coats, hats, gloves, winter boots. Those are some big needs that we have right now.
And a couple of things I've added, I'm going to add to that. One, items that normally those who have the SNAP card or the bridge card, they cannot get with that card, and those are non-food items, the toiletries, and those items that are necessary.
Yes, and that's what we typically hand out at our Great Thanksgiving banquet, which we're not having this year, but our partnership with Community Action House, they're providing the food and we're providing the household items that you can't get with your bridge card. So things like a pack of toilet paper, paper towel, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes. I always joke, it's like all the items that you run out of at once at home. And then when you have to go to the grocery store, it like doubles your budget. Well, for families that are living on the edge of being able to pay their bills and make their house payment, I mean, we don't want them to have to choose between buying groceries for their family and having enough toilet paper at home, or paying the heat and light bill, but not getting toothpaste when they need it, not being able to buy laundry detergent, those kinds of things. So just an extra way to help people out.
And we got a call during our open line segment before we chatted with you, Rachel. Somebody was asking if the person that was doing the annual blanket collection was doing it this year, and I was told by another caller, no, it isn't. But I said, hey, drop the blankets off for the Caring for Community. I think the blankets will be just as welcome as any of the other items we mentioned.
Yeah, and we can use them in our shelter. And then a lot of times as we transition folks on to independent housing, they need a lot of those basic items. Setting up home for the first time can be expensive. So not having to worry about maybe having a blanket would be great.
Now, Rachel, let me ask you about, well, I'll call it nuts and bolts, helping out the mission. Obviously, volunteers has to be a little bit restricted because of the COVID-19 situation, but monetary donations, what you guys do, what the Community Action House and others do, doesn't come through the goodness of retailers' hearts. They gotta make some payments as well. But certainly, how can people help the mission out? Really, the most effective way of getting these items to the people in need.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is always just general financial support, Gary. If folks find that they're in a position that they can make a donation, they can do that safely and securely through our website. And that just gives us an opportunity as staff to decide where we can best use those funds to help people. But then on top of that, we do have a needs list on our website. Individuals can go and view the items that we most frequently need. In the age of COVID, not a lot of folks are wanting to get out and drop off donations. So we do have a couple of lists on Amazon that are posted on our Facebook page. I can get you the link to those if you want to share those for us, but people can purchase items right off of Amazon and have them shipped directly to our facility. That might sound kind of strange, but I have a great example. Last week, we ran out of women's underwear. And it's just one of those items that we take for granted that if I need new underwear, I'll just go buy them, but they're expensive. And we didn't have any left. And so we posted on our Facebook page that we needed those and an Amazon link. And within a couple of days, we had 14 Amazon deliveries at our Family Hope Center of brand new packages of underwear. And it's just, our community is phenomenal. People just jumping in and helping to provide what we need. So there's needs lists on our website. If you follow our Facebook page, there's lots of information there. But yeah, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we need right now.
And of course, the restore. I don't want to forget about that.
Yes. And I had somebody say to me recently, I have a bag of women's clothing that I want to donate, but I don't want it to go to the thrift store. I want it to go to the women's shelter. And I completely understand, and we as a ministry understand the sentiment behind that. But what I like to tell donors is you can trust Holland Rescue Mission to use your donation to the highest and best use for the people that we serve. And what I mean by that is if a bag of women's clothing in a particular size doesn't serve the women in our shelter right now, either because they're not seasonal or they don't fit, we can actually sell those clothing items in our thrift store, get twice the value from them financially, and then be able to provide the services that we're giving to folks in the shelter. So yes, donate your items to the thrift store. That is not a sideline way to support us. It's actually a primary way that you can support us. And everybody has something that they can take out of their closet and give.
One final thing, and I'm noticing on the website right off the front page, Giving Tuesday, December 1. Is that something still? Yeah, it says Giving Tuesday, December 1, Rach.
Yes. So Giving Tuesday is the nonprofit's world's response to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So Black Friday, everybody goes out and shops. Cyber Monday, although maybe everything will be cyber this year. Cyber Monday, people shop online. And then Tuesday is an opportunity for individuals in the community to give back to their charitable partners. And so Holland Rescue Mission is one of those. We're challenging people to give for Giving Tuesday. But people are giving all the time right now, Gary. They don't really need a reminder of Giving Tuesday to do that.
Well, I just saw that on the website. I just want to make sure I wasn't throwing a curveball with you, Rach.
Something that we're pushing right now. So
The website is hollandrescue.org. We will put a link to that when we put the description of the podcast in the description of our podcast. It will have on our webpage at WHTC.com in a few minutes. Rachel Neal from the Holland Rescue Mission. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. Wish you and everybody at the Rescue Mission well. If we don't chat with you next month, have a very blessed and safe holiday season, and we'll talk again in 2021.
Thank you, Gary.
And that is Rachel Neal from the Holland Rescue Mission on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.